The next day, we welcomed the morning without saying a word to each other. During the silence, suddenly a mobile phone's alarm started beeping. It was the time I usually woke up in the morning. B was visibly startled by the sounds of mobile phone beeping. B was generally a very kind person and seemed to have deep remorse. He apologized to me for the previous night when we had gone to the second floor. "I'm sorry, but I couldn't come and help you even though you were the most frightened among the three of us." When I heard his apologetic tone, I was on the verge of tears because I was so relieved to hear his feelings. However, upon closer consideration, I wondered why did he say you were the only one who felt the most scared among three of us. I should have been the only one who had the terrifying experience on the second floor at the time, while A and B were merely observing the second floor from below the stairs. Could it be my rush down the stairs had overwhelmed them? Or maybe they were genuinely frightened by the story of what I had experienced on the second floor last night? I couldn't understand exactly what had scared them. Nevertheless, it seemed that we were all on edge and nervous about everything, still deeply affected by the events of the previous night. I thought that might explain why B's reaction had been so unusual. He reacted dramatically to every sound we made, and sometimes stared intently at the wound on my foot. Clearly, something was wrong with him, and he was acting strangely. While A had a grave and fearful expression, his gaze fixed on B, who was far from his usual self. Hey, are you okay? Are you still confused because you didn't get much sleep last night?" A grabbed B's shoulders. Then suddenly B pushed A's arm away, his shoulders tense, and yelled, "Shut up!" To our surprise, A and I fell silent instantly. "Hey, what's wrong with you?" A appeared stunned, seemingly unable to speak in response to B's sudden outburst, which he couldn't control. "Did you just ask me if I'm okay? Can't you see I'm fine now?" "Tetsu and I had a near-death experience. Don't pretend to sympathize with us and worry about us like this, even though you know nothing about what we went through," B shouted at A, glaring at him. I didn't understand what he was talking about. I thought, what kind of dreadful experience did B have? It's not like he experienced the same fear I did on the second floor last night. A and B had a particularly strong friendship. A would often tease B in a friendly manner, and B always responded with good humor without getting angry. So I had never seen B shout at A like this before, and A had never experienced such a situation either. A was visibly shaken, and I had never seen him like this before. "Hey, what dreadful experience are you talking about? You were observing the second floor from below the stairs, right?" "Yes, I was keeping an eye on the second floor from below the stairs, just as you said." He bowed his head slightly as he fell silent. "Now, I'm still watching it." "What? Now? What are you seeing now?" I couldn't understand what he was talking about. I thought he had finally become possessed and gone insane. At that moment, he began to explain with a trembling voice what had happened to him. "A shadow. A shadow! There was a shadow!" "A shadow?" Yes. At first, I thought it was your shadow, but as you were squatting and eating the leftovers, the shadow was moving around. Then I saw your shadow moving further inside, getting smaller, but I could see mine and its shadow remaining at our feet. And then I clearly saw the shadow moving around. No, wait. It wasn't just one shadow. There was multiple shadows, probably 3 or 4 in total, moving around in that space." Hearing this, I felt a sudden chill down my spine. You can't imagine how desperately I wished that what B was saying was a joke. However, there was nothing in B's demeanor to suggest he was joking. The atmosphere around him was so serious and tense that I couldn't casually dismiss his words as a joke. If I did, he might have snapped at me. It would have been impossible for 3 or 4 people to move around in that space. It wasn't human! You should know better than to ask that. I knew it was impossible for multiple people to move around in that space, no matter how I think about it. What do you mean? They clang to the wall. What? Just like spiders, they clang to the walls and ceilings, moving freely, and... He seemed to remember something vividly, causing his breathing to become even more labored. Calm down. Calm down. Take a breath. Take a breath. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. We're here. We're here. B gradually calmed down and continued speaking. Those were not humans. Well, I mean, they were not human in the sense that they looked completely different from humans. I knew they had originated from humans, but they were eerie, otherworldly creatures derived from humans. I somehow understood what he was trying to convey. I asked, Are you trying to say that there were human-shaped creatures different from humans clinging to the walls? B nodded silently. At that moment my heart raced, as if it might leap out of my mouth at any moment. I suddenly realized that what B had seen couldn't have been shadows. It was unnatural for shadows to move around on the walls and ceilings. Assuming that they were shadows, something must have been there to cast those shadows. Considering B's account, it was clear that I had been squatting on the floor, obviously eating rotting leftovers, while eerie creatures moved around on the wall and ceiling in the same space. What about the scraping and scratching sound on the door? Were those sounds not coming from beyond the door and walls but right beside me? And the breathing sound too? My head spun from the intense fear. B gradually calmed down and apologized to A for getting upset and shouting at him. I'm really sorry for yelling at you. I lost control. It's okay. I tried to appear calm, but inside I was struggling to maintain my composure. The fear from the previous night's experience was threatening to overwhelm me. In this tense atmosphere, A spoke up. You said you're still seeing it. B answered A's question before A even finished asking it. Yes, sorry. I was confused. I'm fine now. But B's forced laugh was evident from the tension on his face. Clearly, he was putting on a facade to appear normal, but his gaze seemed fixed on something else. I couldn't help but noticed that B's face below his eyes was twitching unnaturally. A and I could tell that B was desperately trying to act normally in our presence, struggling not to lose his grip on reality as he had done earlier. Observing B's condition, we realized that we shouldn't press him further about what he had seen. We all knew that B was holding something back, especially the core of what he had witnessed. While it might have made me seem cowardly, I couldn't bring myself to probe him for the core details that he clearly wished to keep hidden. I felt that knowing more might shatter the mental defenses that were keeping me relatively sane at that moment. After a brief silence, Misaki called us for breakfast from the dining room. Unbeknownst to us, we had spent quite some time talking. Truthfully, none of us had much appetite, but we didn't want anyone to suspect anything, so we decided to go to breakfast. I rose slowly and said to A and B, "We should do it as soon as possible, right? Let's discuss our resignation with Makiko after breakfast, alright? That might be the best." "Hey Tetsu, I don't need breakfast. You brought your laptop, right? Could I borrow it?" "Sure, no problem. But we're gonna eat breakfast first." "Actually, there's something I want to look up. I don't have much time left." "I'm sorry, but you two go ahead to breakfast." "Okay, alright, understood. I'll ask Misaki to make some rice bowls for you." "Oh, thanks. That will be helpful. My laptop is in my bag. Help yourself. It's already set up for internet access." I provided B with directions, and we proceeded with our dining hall. When we arrived at the hall, Makiko looked at us and even at my injured feet with a big smile and asked, "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" Such words it had been since the first day and with what happened yesterday, it felt incredibly eerie. Her unnaturally kind demeanor was unsettling, and I remained rigidly still. "We apologize for being late," A responded politely while giving me a reassuring pat on the back, which helped me relax a bit. We assured her that B was still resting due to not feeling well, and that we had requested Misaki to prepare some rice bowls. Misaki reassured us. "No problem at all, don't worry. By the way, I think B should stay in bed all day." A and I sat down at a table, silent throughout the meal. We couldn't bring ourselves to say, "We won't have breakfast because we are quitting now." While we had our meal, Makiko fixed her gaze on me, wearing an oddly unsettling smile. I couldn't help but feel that she was at the table solely to observe me. Misaki and her husband seemed to have noticed her odd behavior and occasionally glanced in her direction. Naturally, A was also frozen in place, caught on her gaze. After breakfast, we headed back to our room to go get B in order to inform Makiko of our intention to resign. As we walked down the hallway, we could hear B's voice coming from one of the rooms. Evidently, he was on the phone. A and I waited outside the room until he finished his call. "Yes, that's what I want you to do today." "Thank you. Yes. Yes. I'll definitely come to see you, so please take care." He hung up the phone. Based on his conversation, it seemed that B was planning to go somewhere immediately after leaving the inn. Both A and B had no intention of prying into the phone call, so we immediately took B with us to the dining hall. When we returned to the dining hall, Misaki was busy clearing up the breakfast dishes. Makiko was nowhere to be seen. I suddenly had a thought. Maybe she's gone there? I remembered her silhouette disappearing up the stairs with a tray during that instant. She probably piled the food she took with her on top of those leftovers. I wondered if she repeated this for days, stacking up the mound. What on earth was it for? Such a question crossed my mind. However, I didn't need to dwell on it, because I was quitting today. I would bid farewell to this place. I could forget about it soon enough. I told myself that what happened on the second floor had nothing to do with me anymore. I asked Misaki about Makiko's whereabouts. "She's probably watering the flowers. She'll be back soon." Misaki replied with a smile and turned to B. "B, I'll make you some rice bowls right away, so please wait," she said and disappeared into the kitchen. We waited for the landlady Makiko to return. A little while later, the landlady Makiko returned, and seeing us sitting in the hall without doing any work, she looked puzzled and said, "What's going on with you guys?" I gathered my courage and began. "Makiko-san, we have something to discuss. Is it okay if we talk for a moment?" Makiko, with a bewildered expression, asked, "What is it? You all look so serious." As she sat down in front of us, I continued, "We won't leave this place today. We'd like to quit." Following my lead, A and B both immediately added, "Please," and lowered their heads. Makiko didn't change her expression at all, and remained silent for a while. It felt incredibly eerie. She didn't even raise an eyeball, as if she had been already expecting this. After a moment of silence, she finally spoke. "I see, alright. There's really no helping you kids, huh?" she said with a smile. Then she started talking about salary adjustments and room cleaning for when we left. It was a one-sided conversation, and she told us to let her know when we were ready. We were all relieved that the conversation went so smoothly, and it almost felt anticlimactic. However, there must have been a lingering sense that something was off. Now that the decision had been made, we wasted no time and got right to work. Our bags were already packed from the previous night. All that was left was cleaning the room. Since I had started this job, I often spent my free time at the nearby beach, or on exhausting days would come back and immediately crash into bed. I didn't spend much time in my room, so even though it was a room shared by 3 guys, it wasn't particularly dirty to begin with. With about an hour of cleaning, the room became significantly tighter. With our preparations complete, we returned to the hall to say our goodbyes to Makiko and the others. When we arrived at the dining hall, the landlady, her husband, and a soulful-looking Misaki were seated. The three of us sat down in seiza side by side. I said, "It's been a short time, but thank you very much for everything. We apologize for any inconveniences." A and B chimed in. "Thank you very much." Makiko then approached us, stood up, and said, "Thank you. It may have been a brief stay, but we appreciate it. Here is not much." Saying this, she handed each of us a small brown envelope. The envelopes were surprisingly heavy, and she also gave us a small purchase. From behind, Misaki added with a hint of tears, "Take care, okay?" She continued, "I made onigiri for everyone," and she handed us onigiri for each of us. I thought, come on, don't make me cry. But it was hard not to. I couldn't look at Misaki's face too closely. The day before, we were on the brink of death, and you might be wondering why we were feeling so sentimental now, right? But in reality, saying goodbye to the people who took care of us can be the start of beautiful memories, even if we didn't realize it at that time. It might seem contradictory, but there was a moment when we didn't want to say goodbye. After we finished our farewells, we decided to head back. When we first came to this inn, we used a bus, but this time we opted for a taxi to get to the station. Actually, the inn owner offered to drive us to the station in his car, but B declined his offer. Instead, we asked Misaki to call us a taxi. When the taxi arrived, Makiko and the others came to see us off to the car. It might have seemed like an emotional farewell to those around us, but in reality, we were in the midst of making our escape. Before getting into the taxi, I looked back. I could barely see the doors to the staircase leading upstairs. I squinted, and it seemed like it was slightly ajar, but I couldn't stare at it for long. Afterwards, the three of us got into the taxi, informed the driver of our destination, and the car started moving right away. As we got a bit further from the inn, B suddenly told the driver to change our destination. B handed the driver something like a note and asked him to take us here. The driver looked at the note with a puzzled expression and asked, "Are you sure? It's quite a long way." B replied, "We're fine," and they turned to A and me, who were sitting in the back seat, looking bewildered. B said, "We have somewhere we need to go. You guys should come with us." A and I exchanged glances, wondering where B was planning to go. However, after witnessing B's behavior that morning, we felt hesitant to ask anything. We were afraid that B might lose his temper again. We continued to drive for a while, and then the driver asked, "Do you guys know the person in the car behind us?" Surprised, I turned around and saw a small truck closely tailing us. Someone inside the truck was waving at us, and it turned out to be the owner of the inn, Makiko's husband. Thinking that we might have left something behind, we asked the driver to pull over. The owner of the inn also stopped his truck right behind us. He got out of the vehicle and came over to us, saying, "You can't just go back like this." We responded, "We're not going back. We can't go back home in this situation." B and the inn owner seemed to understand each other perfectly, leaving A and me completely out of the loop. I asked, "What's going on?" Since I had no idea what was happening. In response, the inn owner turned to me, looked me straight in the eye and said, "You went there, didn't you?" My heart skipped a beat. How did he know? I was genuinely terrified at the moment. It wasn't about the supernatural. It was more like the overwhelming feeling of having done something terribly wrong. All I could manage to say was a feeble yes. The owner of the inn sighed and said, "If you guys just go back like this, you'll be completely taken over." Why on earth did you go to that place? Well, to be fair, I should have told you more clearly. I thought, taken over? What does he mean? Please spare me. We were supposed to have a fun summer vacation waiting for us when we got back from here, right? I looked at A. He had a surprised look in his eyes, growing even more worried. I turned to B. That's when B said, "Don't worry, we were going for a purification ritual. I've already arranged everything on the other side." I couldn't believe it. Was I possessed? Was I going to die? It seemed like this whole situation was leading to death, right? Why on earth did I go to that place? If they didn't want me to go, they should have told me from the beginning. In my overwhelming fear, I was trying to shift my responsibility onto someone else. While I was still in shock, the owner of the inn continued speaking. "A purification ritual." "Yes." "Can you see it?" A asked. "Hey, can you see it?" "I'm sorry, please don't ask right now." Without thinking, I grabbed B. "Cut the cryptic talk! What have you been saying since earlier?" "Hey, calm down. You guys should be grateful to B, if anything. But isn't it dangerous not to explain what's going on? You guys still can't see it, can't you? Be the most at risk." Both A and I looked at B simultaneously. B had a troubled expression on his face. "Why is it B? I'm the one who actually went to that place." "I know, but you can't see it, can you? What's with all this talk about seeing or not seeing?" "I don't know." "What?" I was getting irritated by the nonsensical things that owner was saying. "All I know is that it's pitch black." "But well..." Saying that, the owner looked at B. "Even if we go for the purification ritual, I doubt it will change anything." B, wearing a suspicious expression, asked the owner. "Why do you say that?" The owner said, "Because something like this has happened before, but I can't go into details. We won't know useless we try, right?" "That's true. In that case, if that doesn't work, what's your plan? Once you can see, things can escalate extremely quickly." The word quickly left me completely baffled as to what it meant. However, after the owner mentioned that, B collapsed and started crying. It was a voiceless sob, and both A and I stood there, unable to do anything. Perhaps sensing our unusual atmosphere, the taxi driver rolled down the window and asked, "Are you folks okay?" None of us could give a response. B in particular was sobbing face down on the road. Then the owner spoke to the driver. Sorry about this. I know it's inconvenient, but could you drop these guys off here?" The driver hesitated, saying, "Huh? But..." He glanced back and forth between us. Ignoring the situation, the owner talked to B. "Do you understand why I followed you guys? There's someone who knows the root of all this. I'll take you to that person. We've already talked, and they're expecting us soon. We're running out of time, trust me." B, who had been trembling, appeared to master all his strength. With a face contorted from crying, he said, Please." It was as if they couldn't breathe. It felt like watching a wailing infant, not a grown person. It occurred to me that B, who had been so emotional, had been crying an enormous burden all by himself. I'd never seen B cry so much before, and I doubted I ever would again. Hearing B's voice, I turned to the driver and said, "I'm sorry, we'll get off here. How much is the fare?" After that, we got into the owner's pickup truck. Well, when I said got in, I mean that A and I were in the truck bed. It was the most uncomfortable ride ever. Despite A letting out a girlish scream, I just brushed it off. I had no idea how long we drove. It probably wasn't too long. Honestly, my tailbone hurt so much I couldn't focus on anything else.